Zanzibar is a gorgeous tropical island off the coast of mainland Tanzania, and it's pretty popular with tourists who want to relax in its beautiful beaches, go snorkeling or scuba diving, and for culture and history enthusiasts like myself. But what do you need to travel to Zanzibar? Do you need visas? Is it safe? Where should you stay? How do you get around the island? In this video, I'll answer all of these questions and more so you have everything that you need to travel to Zanzibar in one video. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Laura and I create travel content. So if you like travel vlogs about culture and nature, or you want to travel to any of the places that I mentioned on my channel and you need travel information, then remember to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. So before you travel to another country, there's a few things that you should know about. And the number one question that you should ask is if you need a visa to enter that country. So that's going to depend on your nationality and your passport. Some people won't need a visa to enter Tanzania and others will. So I'll leave a few links in the description with a few resources so you can check if you need a visa or not. Just for clarification, the Tanzanian visa is valid for Zanzibar as well as mainland Tanzania. So if you're doing a safari in, say, the Serengeti and then want to travel to Zanzibar, you don't need a different visa for that. Personally, I did need a visa to enter Tanzania, and I'll tell you a bit about my experience getting a Tanzanian visa just so you can get an idea of the process. I have a Spanish passport, and I had the option of getting my visa online or at the border just as I arrived at the airport. Personally, I think that whenever you get the chance to get all of the bureaucratic hurdles done beforehand, you should take it. It'll be less of a hassle down the road, so I chose to get my visa online. The Tanzanian government website works really well and the entire visa process is explained really nicely. It wasn't a difficult process at all and it didn't take long to get approved. The visa cost $50 and if you get your visa online, you have the option of paying online or at the border. Again, I think it's just best to do these things as soon as you get the chance, so I paid online. Something else that's really nice about this visa is that in both situations there are a number of payment options available so you can choose the best one for you. You should also know that people from certain countries need a referral visa to enter Tanzania. So if you're from one of these countries, you need to submit your visa application at least 2 months before you plan to travel, and it's not recommended that you make any plans or any bookings in Tanzania until your visa gets approved. There are also some health requirements to enter Tanzania, specifically regarding the yellow fever vaccine. But before I continue, I want to make it clear that I'm not a healthcare professional, so please consult with a doctor for everything that I'm going to talk about in this section. Not everyone needs to be vaccinated against yellow fever to enter Tanzania. You only need a vaccination and a certificate to prove that you're vaccinated if you're coming from a country at risk of yellow fever transmission. These countries include most sub-Saharan African countries, including all of Tanzania's neighboring countries, as well as many South American ones. You also need a vaccination certificate if you have a layover in one of these countries that is longer than 12 hours. So to give you an example, you don't need a vaccination certificate if you're flying, say, from the UK to Zanzibar, but you do need one if you're traveling from the UK to Kenya and then to Zanzibar. I'll leave a link in the description to a page on the NHS website, which is the UK National Health Service that talks more in detail about this and also has tons of information about Tanzania and travel health. I should also note that even if you're not required to get a yellow fever vaccination to enter Tanzania, it is recommended that you get one. The other question that people frequently have about traveling to Zanzibar is about malaria. So Tanzania is considered a country at risk for transmission for malaria, so I really suggest that you talk to your doctor about maybe getting anti-malarial medication and that you bring mosquito spray. The best time to travel to Zanzibar is early in the year, in January or February, or during the summer months in June, July, or August. You should know that if you're traveling outside of these months, it may be a lot harder to travel. A lot of resorts and tour companies will close down during the low season, so it might be difficult to find a place to stay and things to do. In my experience, I'd also avoid the last week of February if you can, since this is when a lot of tour companies start closing down as well. So to come to Zanzibar Island, you have to go through Zanzibar city itself, so either through the airport or Stone Town Port. There are pretty regular flights to Zanzibar City from places like Arusha and Nairobi, and if you're coming from further away, Qatar Airways has flights from Doha. So that's what I did. I was flying from Madrid and I booked all of my flights with Qatar Airways. I always try to fly with them when I'm flying outside of Europe to Sub-Saharan Africa or to Asia, and I highly recommend flying to Zanzibar with them if you're coming from outside the African continent. The other option is to use the ferry. There's a ferry that leaves every day from Dar es Salaam. It's much cheaper than flying and the journey is only 2 hours long. If you're staying in a resort in the east side of the island, so in a place like Nungwi or Jambiani, your hotel will usually organize your airport transfer. If not, you can book one yourself or you can get a taxi. If you're going to Stone Town, the journey is just 10 minutes and it should cost you around $15 US. I actually have another video that talks in more detail about where to stay in Zanzibar, and it has tons of great info. I'll make sure I put it on the screen and I'll also link it in the description so that you can watch it after this video, but I'll also give you the most important information here as well. If you're traveling to Zanzibar for the beaches and the resorts, which I guess you most likely are, the best resorts are usually found on the eastern side of the island, so in places like Nungwi, Jambiani, Paje or Bweju. All of these are quite popular with tourists, so if you want a more secluded place, there are other options like Iwengwa and Bongwe which are great. If you're more interested in the cultural and historical side of Zanzibar, I highly recommend you check out Stone Town. I stayed at a place called Balcony House when I was there and I really recommend it. It's not a luxurious place, but the property is gorgeous, the location is fantastic, the staff is super nice, and it's pretty budget friendly. Again, I have another YouTube video that talks in depth about everything that you can do in Zanzibar, and I actually have an entire playlist all about Zanzibar with tons of valuable information, so I really suggest that you check that out after watching this video if you want to know more about the destination or if you're planning to travel there. But again, I'll give you the most important information here as well. The most obvious thing you can do in Zanzibar is just relax on the beach, but there's a lot more this place has to offer. Zanzibar is a diverse paradise. Whether you're a pro or just an amateur, Zanzibar is the perfect place to go snorkeling or diving. Some of the best places to do that are Memba Island or Dumbatu Island, but there are many more incredible diving spots. Zanzibar is also great for windsurfing. The eastern side of the island gets a lot of wind and places like Paja are really great windsurfing spots. There's also a horse club in Nungwi in the north of the island, so you can ride horses and get in the water with them, and it looks amazing. Going on a spice tour is also something I highly recommend, and going on a day trip to Jazani Forest. Not a lot of people go to Jazani, but it was honestly one of my favorite places on the island, so I really recommend you don't skip it. And lastly, I have to mention Stone Town. Stone Town is Zanzibar City's cultural and historical center, and there's just so much to see and learn here. There's some really cool museums like the Freddie Mercury Museum, but I also loved seeing the beautiful architecture, and the sunsets at Stone Town Beach are just epic. Prison Island is nearby as well, and it's also a really cool place, so I also recommend that. Again, if you want more information on any of these places or activities, I really suggest that you check out my Zanzibar playlist, but especially the video about the top 5 things to do in Zanzibar. If you're staying in Stone Town, I recommend that you just walk around. I found it pretty easy to walk here, and the only thing I'd say is that it can be very easy to get lost, so I suggest that you download an offline map. I use the Maps.me app and it works really well, so I highly recommend it. If you want to go to other places in the island, taxis are a great way to move around, and if you book excursions, transport will usually be included. There are also public buses available if you're on a budget, and I personally didn't use these, but I feel like they would be very intuitive considering the island isn't too big. Zanzibar's currency is a Tanzanian shilling. At the time of filming, $1 is approximately 2,500 Tanzanian shillings, but of course these things change, so make sure you check the exact exchange rates before you leave. Because Zanzibar is pretty touristic though, you can pay in many places with US dollars or even euro, and you won't have any trouble finding ATMs or banks or financial services in Zanzibar City. It's also a good idea to carry a few small bills with you for tips. A question that I frequently get asked is if Zanzibar is safe. The short answer is yes, I'd say it's very safe. Tanzania in general is a safe country, and of course no place is 100% safe, things can happen anywhere, but there's no reason why you should be particularly worried when traveling to Zanzibar. I'd say that as long as you follow basic safety rules like not flashing your belongings and knowing where you are, you should be completely fine. Stone Town gets a bit of a worse reputation for being unsafe, but I completely disagree with that. I spent a lot of time in Stone Town and I don't think it deserves a bad reputation at all. If you want to know more about Stone Town, I have a full video that talks about it, so I'll put it on the screen and I'll also link it in the description so you can watch it after this one. And that video talks about everything that you need to know about Stone Town, including safety. What I would say about staying safe in Zanzibar though is to watch out for dangers in nature, particularly when you're going to the beach. Even though the Indian Ocean looks super calm and pretty in photos, the ocean currents here are no joke, so please be careful when swimming and watch out for the tide. Also, make sure you take flip-flops or some kind of shoe to the beach so you don't step on any sea urchins. It's also important to protect yourself against sunburns, so wear sunscreen and always drink bottled water, not tap water. There's nothing wrong with tap water in Zanzibar, but it's generally not recommended that you consume tap water when you're traveling, and that's advice I swear by. And lastly, if you're planning to travel to Zanzibar solo, you might want to hear from someone who's done that before. So I traveled there solo and I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. So I definitely recommend Zanzibar for solo travelers. The only thing I'd say is that it's not a place where most people travel solo. So most people who travel to Zanzibar travel in couples or as a family. So if you want to meet other solo travelers on your trip, you have to put a bit more effort into it. So staying in hostels, checking Facebook groups before you go, that kind of thing. The other thing I'd say is that I don't recommend that you book activities with the goal of meeting other solo travelers. So whenever I travel to someplace solo, I always try to book activities through Get Your Guide mostly to meet other solo travelers that may join those activities. But in Zanzibar, most activities are private tours, so it's just you and your guide, and it's not a great place to meet other travelers. That said, you can have a fantastic trip in Zanzibar without meeting other solo travelers, and there's lots of other people that you can talk to, so I still highly recommend the destination, even if you're traveling solo. If you liked this video and found it useful, remember to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. I would really appreciate it if you did. And check out my Zanzibar playlist for more information about traveling to this beautiful island.